So we had from Brett yesterday morning this beautiful question about renunciation. Did you hear his question?
No, he told me a little bit. So I need to listen.
So this is, we get all of the terms in here. We get in this chapter, chapter 4, the wisdom yoga, so jnana yoga, of action, karma, and renunciation, tyaga. So, big words. And here's the last sutra that we read yesterday, and then we continue in this vein. Age after age, I take birth to protect the good. Geeta Dhyanam. Thank you, Mantaji. Thank you. Okay, Geeta Dhyanam. Oh, Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters of the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows, the milker is the cowherd boy Krishna, Arjuna is the calf, people of purified intellect are the drinkers, the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, now, thank you. So where we had closed yesterday was Sloka 7, which is this. And there will be a concept about this, but it will be explored today. The concept comes from this famous shloka: when righteousness is lost and wickedness prevails, I appear on earth in bodily form, or I take birth in a body like this. And then he continues in the vein and he explains what he means here. So, age after age, I take birth to protect the good, destroy the wicked, and to establish virtue. When we hear that, we have the idea, of course, that it's an external occurrence, but that's not the only meaning of it. Then, he who thus knows my divine birth and action in true light, having abandoned the body, is not born again. He comes to me, O Arjuna. Do we see the switch from an external idea to an internal idea, to an individual idea? Mm-hmm. Just these three. I'll read the translation from Swami Venkatesananda here. Just the three. Just listen to the three and the relationship with each other, and then we'll explore the commentary. So here's where we started, where we closed yesterday. Whenever there is decline of righteousness, O Arjuna, and the rise of unrighteousness, then I manifest myself. So that speaks to a kalpa, to a time in the world when there is unrighteousness, right? And that was the discussion yesterday. And then we come here for the protection of the good and the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of righteousness. I am born in every age. And then that's explored. A little commentary here from Swamiji. What does God do when he manifests himself? He protects the good, destroys the evil, and establishes righteousness. And he says, please note that the good need not be confined to good people. protection of the good and destruction of the evil. So there would be an idea that he protects the good people and destroys the evil people. That's a very common notion. We'll find it in the Christian tradition, the common notion of end times, that the good people are saved and the evil people are damned eternally, right? But Swamiji is pointing out that's not actually what's being shared here. He says it's not just confined to the good people, protection of the good and destruction of the evil. Then he says, fill up the blanks as you like. Even good and evil tendencies may be brought within the meaning of this verse. So look at ourselves, and that divine is the protector of the good tendencies and the destroyer of the evil tendencies. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
You see that within yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Sloka 9. He who thus knows my divine birth and action in the true light. So, my divine birth. Where is Krishna really born? We often say it's one at a time. Right?
It's an ongoing process.
He who thus knows my divine birth and action in true light, having abandoned the body, is not born again. He comes to me, O Arjuna. So here's a concept now of renunciation. It's really the first concept of renunciation that's being shared, which is the abandonment of the body. So what does that mean? We'll read the commentary, but who wants to take a shot with that?
Identification with the body through the senses
Very
to let
good.
go.
Very good. That's what we've been discussing, right?
Correct.
Since chapter 2 and chapter 3, Karma Yoga has been all about
Getting out of
abandoning
self.
self-centered motivations, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not unrelated. This is a progression that we're dealing with, right? Okay. So,
Where was Krishna born?
in your heart, dear. In your heart. So that's what this shloka is speaking to. Having abandoned the body doesn't mean leaving the body, but it does mean abandoning this cycle, this process where the body, the senses, the sense objects are demanding our attention and our servitude. Or they're saying, no, you follow me. I'm hungry right now. No, this is a beautiful object. You follow me. We're going to get this object. We don't care what the cost is. We're going to have this object. We're going to have this person. We're going to have this shiny new car. We're going to have this job. We're going to have these people revere us. So who says that?
The ego, the self, the small
The
self.
voice is inside, isn't it? So that's ego. So here, having abandoned the body, he who knows my divine birth and action in true light, having abandoned the body, is not born again. He comes to me, O Arjuna. So this isn't speaking about a kalpa. It's not speaking about a lot of people. Now he's made this very individual, very much individual,
Yes.
right? So he's moved from this concept of I come in order to bring Dharma back, which we think means in the world. Huh? But why can't it mean in you?
That's where it starts.
What's the difference? What's the difference? Society is the collective of individuals. So I picture Swami Vishnu sitting in his orange, and he's holding a cotton cloth like this. And he says, this is a cotton cloth. And this cotton cloth is made of cotton threads. He said, say that I want to make this cotton cloth silk. How do I make it silk? I replace every thread with silk thread. Right? So the work is done at the individual level. Transformation of society requires transformation of individual. It doesn't happen without the transformation of the individual. Right? Oh. So the transformation is always an individual transformation. It's not a transformation of them. It's a transformation of me. They won't change unless I change.
That's right.
And if I change,
It will change.
then they'll change. If I change, then I'll find out who they were to begin with.
No.
So, beautiful commentary here. He says, at this stage, it is necessary to remind ourselves that the first person singular used in this scripture does not refer to the personality Krishna, but to the Godhead revealing itself through him. The speaker could well have been Krishna, Christ, Buddha, or Allah, and is. And is. He's not saying something different than Christ says. Right? Oh. The meaning and the significance will not suffer in the least. It is in this light that we should take the declaration of Lord Jesus that he is the light, the truth, and the way, and that no one goes to the Father but through me. We can realize the unmanifest Godhead only through the manifest divinity. There is, however, no harm in the followers of Krishna regarding him as their only way, and the followers of Christ adhering to his feet with equal zeal. What is harmful, however, is running others down, which is a waste of time anyway. It is absurd, too, to say, only my mother is a woman capable of giving birth to human children. Yours cannot be. We all have only one mother, but motherhood is not restricted to that woman. It is common to all women. The manifest divinity is more easily accessible to the embodied being than the unmanifest transcendental being. In fact, that is the very purpose of manifestation of the Avatara, God symbolically descending to our level in order to accept, redeem, and uplift us. When we learn not to cavil at the Avatara, but to accept, adore, and worship them, knowing their true divine nature, we shall have attained enlightenment and liberation. It is equally important to remember that knowing their true nature implies recognition of the essential divine nature of oneself and the urgent need to shake off the dust that covers it. Such recognition is an avatara too. So this is, again, a theme, right? Smoke and fire that we discussed near the end of Karma Yoga. Right? And we had the image of the dust on the mirror and the need to dust the mirror, the need to wipe off. Remember we were discussing about what is it that covers the wisdom?
Ego. Wrong identification.
So, self-centered desires and self-centered aversions are what are covering Krishna, or the Godhead. Godhead is right here. Okay. So now he's moved from what seemed to be universal to the individual, right? So he'll continue in that vein. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Yeah. Now he's talking very much about what we can do as individuals in order to experience this coming of age, or this coming of Krishna here, right now. right? The coming of the Godhead right now. What did he say? He who thus knows my divine birth and action in true light. So those are Krishna's words. Those aren't commentary. Right? What? Having what? The body. Having what? The body. Come on, you've got it. Having what? The body. Sorry? Abandoned. Very good. Having abandoned. Renounced is the correct spirit. No, it's the correct spirit. You've got the concept. So having abandoned the body is what?
Not born again.
Is not born again. So he comes to me. But that having abandoned the body, what happens within? Having abandoned the body, offering oneself to that Godhead, following it, that's what's happening here, isn't it? This conversion of Arjuna.
Reborn immortal.
Reborn immortal. So that concept we'll continue to deal with. Okay, but that's what the rebirth is. Rebirth, what does Jesus say? Thou cannot come to me without being born again of fire and water. Fire and water. Fire is the water, of course, is the baptism.
Yes.
Symbolizing that rebirth.
Fire renunciation.
So, okay, now staying on this individual, having moved from this concept of I come in this kalpa. Freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the fire of knowledge. That's the fire. The fire of knowledge. Many have attained to my being. So you see, very much individual now, isn't it? So this awakening, this coming of the Avatara, in what age? Every age. And what culture? Every culture. And what form? Every form. Which form? Which form?
This form.
This form.
That's all I can speak of.
This form. This form. Where is Krishna? Where is the Godhead? This form. So that's the teaching, isn't it? So now what happens? Freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me. Me who? Something outside?
Me.
Me. Yeah. Me. Taking refuge in me. Purified by the fire of knowledge, many have attained to my being. So here's the commentary. So do we hear it? So renunciation is this. This is what this renunciation is referring to. Renouncing the self-centered interests, renouncing the ego, the false notion of self. That's it. It's not about renouncing wife, renouncing family. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about affirming what's really here, what pervades you, what pervades me, what pervades everyone and everything here, the truth of everyone and everything here, the eternal aspect of everyone and everything here, the highest aspect of everyone and everything here. But only through renouncing the lowest is it possible to affirm the highest. Because they operate, as it were, as if at poles
one or the other
of each other, right?
Correct.
Because the shadow or the smoke asserts something.
Desire.
Right. It asserts individuality, separation, need. But the light also asserts,
Higher.
come to me, I shall free thee.
Be free.
So here's Swamiji's commentary. When we are thus convinced of the divine purpose behind bless you, behind this creation, that is the establishment of righteousness and the destruction of evil. We will give up vainly craving for the objects of the world and getting attached to them. And again, we've switched the way of hearing. So if we're hearing this properly, we're hearing within this body chariot. Within this body chariot, right? Not somewhere else, within this body chariot. The affirmation of righteousness, the establishment of righteousness, the establishment of selflessness, the establishment of the virtuous life, the establishment of the eternal life, of the divine life, right? And the destruction, is it destroyed? You can say like that. So no longer following in my life, there's a destruction of what? A destruction of separation, a destruction of fear, a destruction of anger, a destruction of selfishness, right? Oh,
Separation.
so that's fair, isn't it?
In the Ramayana, the destruction of Lanka is symbolic of that.
Oh, yeah, very good. Indeed, very good. So, desire and anger cease in us. We give up vainly craving for the objects of the world and getting attached to them. When we assure ourselves of God's protection, if we are good, then fear ceases. The good can never be harmed by anyone, and here legends and history assure us that the truly good one blesses her oppressors, for they compel her to seek refuge at the feet of God. Remember I shared the story on the banana that came up a couple of days ago, that when it was bad, when it was unripe or overripe, it was such a great help because it caused me to stop and pay attention.
Yeah.
And in the same way, the person that says something to you, does something to you, causes you finally to connect to the divine, to remember the divine, to take refuge in the divine. So what do you say for that? For the person that does it? You say, thank you. So you bless them. You bless them. God bless you. Thank you.
It's true.
Right? That's a switch, but you see? So who were you really to do that?
Always down. Just veiled.
Western psychology tells us that likes, dislikes, and fears are present even in a newborn baby, but these are absent in the yogi. Catch that. There's a beautiful exposition, beautiful essay on fear in Bliss Divine that highly recommended. For anyone who hasn't read it, we'll pick it up one evening soon. But highly recommended, because the psychologists will say fear is always here. Western psychologists will say that. But in a yogi, it's absent. It's not courage. Courage is required on the path. But when you know who you are, what is the fear? Right? When you know that you're not this body, when you know that you have the ability to live in the Dharma, regardless of what circumstance you're given, when you know that you have the ability to live a virtuous life, when you know that you are free, ever free, what is the fear? What's anger? So they're gone, they're absent. And the one who's transcended, they're gone. They don't exist any longer.
I thought it was said that they're still there, they still come, but the yogis understand.
Until they don't.
Until they don't. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a question of the clouds and whether the clouds are my clouds or not.
Right. You're not.
So after a while, not even aware of them. So they're always here somewhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to latch on.
But you might lose awareness of them because they don't have any independent reality. There's only one reality. So if you learn to see the reality instead of a cloud, at some point, They don't present themselves in that way any longer. So, all this is possible only if we kindle the fire of knowledge within us and keep it forever alive. This fire dispels the darkness of ignorance and gives us the comfort of the warmth of divine assurance. It saves us from the pit of temptations, from the evil within ourselves, and promotes goodness in us. For we begin to realize that goodness is closer to God. This knowledge confers upon us the greatest boon of forbearance and fortitude to endure the flea bites of evil forces in the certain conviction that they cannot harm us, but on the contrary, they do keep us awake in God. This knowledge thus liberates us from our own evil tendencies and reveals to us that even the good ones are but the protégés of God. True goodness and righteousness belong in Him. We are immediately filled with wonderment and gratitude, in which we let our little ego be absorbed in Him. So there was some conversation about ego, I believe, a few days ago, where the ego becomes absorbed in that absolute. Even the ego becomes the servant of the absolute.
That brings to mind Swami saying that his body and mind are like ragdoll. Wow.
What today? Where are we going today? We know where we're going today now. We think so. It could change. We're going to take lavender flowers to be distilled.
Sounds very relaxing versus trying to work everything out all the time. It's very exhausting.
I had no idea. A week ago, I had no idea about lavender flowers or any of that. But here it is. We're distilling, but it's joyful.
Beautiful.
We attain to God's being. We return to the center, source, and goal of our being, the ground of our existence. The knower of God becomes God, says the Upanishad. Charcoal offered into fire becomes fire.
Heats.
It's an interesting
Fire of knowledge.
allegory. So, and what is this but charcoal? Is this not of the same substance as that? So this offered to the fire becomes fire.
The effect becomes absorbed.
Yeah. So this offered to God becomes God. The knower of God becomes God. This one of God is man only to our human vision, but in truth he's one with God. This is a great part of the reason that the saints are all around here, and why we want to keep them around, is also to help with our view, to help with our perception, with our angle of view. Because there's something here still in us that says, that's a man, that's a woman, he's young or old or this or that, right?
Judgment.
But in fact, it's not so.
Pure being.
Pure being. Pure being. Is Amma a woman or a man?
Well,
Both, neither. Both. We pick. Is she young or old?
Immortal.
Lord Krishna's searchlight illumines the inside of the person. Religion gets a revolutionary meaning. Life glows with a divine purpose. Man's puny individuality receives a fatal blow, only to be resurrected in and as God. Step by step, we are led into the heart of the reality where nothing but God exists, and where even the visible universe is but the body of God. Even the visible universe is but the body of God. It is. And the angle of view shifts, you see. So we can sit here and say, it is, but that recognition is not very, very far away from experiencing it that way. Makes sense, right?
So once you unravel it intellectually, then
and you live it,
then you're not far from
and
actually
you live
experiencing it.
So remember the formula given for learning the truth, for comprehending the teaching of truth. Comprehending means to understand, doesn't it? So understanding does not just imply intellectual knowledge, does it?
You have to integrate it.
It has to be experiential in order to understand it, right? In order to understand a bee, one would have to be in the bee mentality. One would have to have experienced the bee. In order to understand God, one would have to be. So, manana, shravana, manana, nididhyasana. Shravana, which,
Listening.
this is the thing. Manana, contemplate. So here we're contemplating. And then nididhyasana, we have to put it into practice. That was the discussion last night, too. We have to put it into practice. The little ego asserts itself. It has its own petty desires and cravings, attachments and aversions, dogmas and doctrines. What does that mean, put it into practice? You have to love and serve everyone.
Yes. Mind and
You
thought.
have to love and serve everyone. That's what it means to put it into practice.
Serve love.
You have to love and serve all. That's what it means to put it into practice. You have to.
Zero.
If you're going to practice it, you have to. You can't have a problem with anyone.
Oh.
You have to. If you still have a problem with someone, you have to root that out. Huh? This is teaching of oneness, of unity. So how do you practice teaching of unity? You have to see the unity in everyone, right?
You have to be it.
You have to see it in you, and you have to see it in everyone. So you have to recognize that when that's not what you're seeing, that you're seeing something false, that's unreal. You have to practice differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when the masters say serve all, love all, I mean, that's it. That's it. Finally, that's it. You have to root out the individuality. You have to pull it out by its threads.
Place it with silk.
One by one, the threads have to come out.
Arduous task.
And you have to weave into life the threads of unity.
Yeah.
You have to see what's here. You can't continue to honor these, because both of these are within, right? This assertion by Lord Krishna of the unity of all is within, isn't it?
Yes.
Don't we experience it? Don't we experience the urge to love everyone? To forgive? Don't we experience the pull towards the divinity? Don't we wish to be loved completely, fully, unconditionally? And don't we know that in order to have what we want, we have to give it? That's all that knowledge, that wisdom is within us, isn't it? It really is, isn't it? Yeah, it gets veiled. But it's there, isn't it? But then there are notions that arise that are the opposite of it. Yes?
Notions.
So those are the cotton threads. The silk threads are the ones of unity. So we have to pull them out. The question is how to do it, and Lord Krishna continues. That's the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. That's where we are here as well. He's teaching how to do it, right? How to do it. How to change this nature into union with the divine nature.
Yeah, that's a
No
nice
fear.
view. I find with that view, the ego doesn't get puffed up with the study and the knowledge and all that. It's more like, it's more practical, seeing in daily life. Like, oh, this person, there's so many different factors that are unknown, and like different things that you read about in the knowledge-based stuff comes into practicality when that view of how can I better love people comes, is the foundation.
I shared a little story with Gopal yesterday, and so I'll share.
Oh,
This is a story that just came recently back into awareness. How do you love and serve all? Well, you have to find Krishna in them. You have to find the highest in them, and you have to find the highest in you. So, and that's what's being discussed here. This reawakening or this awakening of the divine spirit. So here's the story that I shared. When I was walking the coast to coast here, I walked through Toledo, Ohio, and I was asked, there's a Zen temple there. It's interesting. It's in an industrial area. It's quite authentic, though. It doesn't look like a temple on the outside, but on the inside, it's very much a temple. And the head, the master of the temple, I had talked with prior, and I was invited to come and meet and talk. And I was staying in his house. His house is a farmhouse. So I went there. His wife was out, and he was involved, and I had a couple of days there, and I was doing my thing. And they have 3 dogs, and the dogs are pugs, so they're little guys. And Louis is the ringleader of the 3. And Louis did not like me at all. And so I would go in and John, we'll call him John, would tell Louis to back down, because Louis would see me and fierce. Get out of here. You don't belong here. I don't like you. I don't want anything to do with you, he would say. And John would say, quiet, Louis. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And then John would leave, and Louis would be. And if I so much as moved, if I took a breath,
that's my new ringtone.
He was in attack mode all the time. So let me see. Practice, love all, serve all. So I asked if I could feed Louis, because I had a couple of days with Louis. I asked if I could feed Louis, and I was given permission to feed him, and even to give him a treat. So so I fed him, and while I'm pouring the food.
Yes.
Get away from that food.
Oh, you make it.
Get away from that. So I would leave it far enough, and he would, and then he'd come over and eat. And leave. So, and I was able to give him a treat, but he wouldn't take the treat from my hand. He would just bark at me. Put it down, he would say. Put it down and I'll eat it. And so I would put it down and he would eat it. So I decided, okay, Louis, I'm just going to surrender to you completely. I don't care what you do to me. I don't care if you bite my toe, if you eat my toe. I don't care. I don't care if I bleed out. I am just going to surrender to you completely. This was my choice. This was my choice. Because he was suffering terribly, and my guidance is love all and serve all. And so the next morning I just sat. I went into the kitchen area, and John was out. And Louis was loose, and he was in all of his glory. And I just sat in the kitchen and just radiated love for him. I just sat and thought only loving thoughts about him, radiated the thoughts to him, And when I looked at him, he would bark at me. But there was something that he felt clearly, because he started getting a little closer, and he would get a little closer and he'd bark. And then he'd get a little closer and he'd bark. Whenever I would look away, he would move a little closer.
Yes.
And 3 hours later, I just sat there the whole time, radiating love. What to do? I didn't have somewhere else to be. So I just radiated love. Do you know how to radiate love? It's a good practice. So I sat there radiating love, and he kept getting closer and closer and closer. And finally he came over and nudged me. And I couldn't move, right? I couldn't, because if I moved, that would just scare him off. That would freak him out, and he'd go, and it would be just like it was. So I just sat there. And he nibbled my toe, and I just sat there. And he came over and touched me on the side, nosed me, barked a little bit. Nothing. I just kept radiating love. And he got very close, and he rolled over on his back and laid up against me. And then in a little while, he climbed up on my lap and rolled over on his back and let me rub his belly. Now, those that know animals, you know what that is. So, you know what that is. I had surrendered to him. He knew it, and he returned it by surrendering to me. And so we were, from that point on, best friends. Best friends. So, and how? By seeing the Godhead in him and knowing that I could never be hurt by loving anyone. So, and then just practicing it. Okay, so we should close. Anything this morning? So you see, he's talking about, it wasn't just about in these unrighteous times, like this time. Of course he's coming in this time. Of course he's coming in this time. But he's coming in each of us.
He came to you in the movie.
Sorry?
He came to you.
Absolutely, of course. Of course. Okay. So let's close with final prayer. Narati, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukneva Vandanan Ritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukneva Vandanan Ritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukneva Vandanan Ritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shanti Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Makashi Dukhabha Bhave Asatoma Sakgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti 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 O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all of these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all of these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. On below Sakura Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and salutations to all the saints and sages of all of the traditions. That's right, Sri Arti.